Welcome back to Partum the Mess, a podcast about humorous, inspirational, and educational experiences presented by first-time dads trying to navigate parenthood and staying sane doing it. I'm your host, Phil, and today I'm joined by TJ.
Hello.
And Eden.
Hi, yo.
This is episode number 16, and today we'll check in with each other and then talk a little bit about dad shaming. So, what's going on, guys? Who wants to start?
Sure, I'll jump in. So I recently went back to work after working from home for a month and a half from COVID-19. Yeah, so we went back, started getting the last week, and it's been interesting. I really miss my kid, particularly now that we are sort of going through a couple of different sleep training methods, and he's been going to bed at around 6 or so, just by of his own, like that's when he's decided he's tired, which is unfortunate because I will sometimes get home, I'll leave work at 5:30 sometimes. So I'll be getting home as he's going down, and I miss out a lot on being with him. And it's really frustrating for me because I had that 6 weeks of just sort of, I took like a month off for paternity, and then we had just like a couple months in there, and then I worked from home again. So like I've had him since he's been born. Yeah. I've just sort of been there with him. I've seen all his milestones, and now it's just sort of like I feel like I hardly see him. And I try to get up in the morning and be with him in the morning because now he's waking up at 5 or 6 in the morning, which isn't that big of a problem for me. I can get up that early, so I get up and I can spend some time with him then. But I just feel like it's just not enough time. I've had so much time with him recently that I'm really missing it. It's hard.
I kind of have some of that too. Like even I'm still working from home. They have not transitioned yet to having people in the office, but even still, I'll get off work at 5 or so, and if the kids have had a rough nap day or something, then they'll be going to bed at 6 or 6:30, and sometimes I get in trouble because Brittany asks me to take them upstairs and start getting them ready for bed, but instead I'll play with them. And she's like, they need to be getting ready for bed. And I'm like, but I'm playing with them. Let me play with them. And so she tries more than I do, but she tries to keep them on a pretty strict bedtime schedule, and I get in trouble a little bit because I want to play with them, but they got to go down when they got to go down. But
yeah, and I guess for me on that note as well, as we're thinking about, my company hasn't told us, hey, you need to be back at work. But as that's approaching, first of all, Cody's really sad. She's like, man, I'm, a lot sadder. Is that the right word? than I thought I would be. And she kind of doesn't want that. And I'm like, well, I don't decide that, if I have to go back to work. And it's the simple fact of me just taking a break and coming down and saying hi and interacting with her and interacting with Emmett, I think just makes all the difference throughout the day. And that's enough for her to, I don't know, have some kind of adult interaction that she wasn't getting before when I was at work, Yeah. And it's been really nice, and she really likes it. So she's really sad about that. And I am too. It's been great. Every time I come down, Emmett's super excited to see me. I think all of our kids are close in age, but different enough to be at different stages. And yeah, so we're trying to figure that out, and I had to ask my boss already, like, hey, is there going to be some kind of hybrid to see if I can continue to indefinitely work like one day from home and try to see if we can work that in, because it's been such a nice thing.
I think a lot of companies are realizing that it's quite feasible to have your employees at home at least part of the time, and I would not be surprised to see a lot of companies transition to sort of a hybrid thing, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, with the conversations I've had so far with my, one of them being an executive, he said that's likely to happen. So we'll see what they come up with. It won't be decided for another few weeks.
Yeah. And
I was just going to mention on another note going on, we just celebrated our 4-year anniversary just this last week. So it was kind of funny. We both completely forgot. Like we remembered the few days before, and we're like, are we going to plan anything? You going to want anything? And we're like, no, not really. And then the day of, we just completely forgot. And I think Cody sent me a text like, my sister just told me happy anniversary. And that's how she remembered, was because her sister said happy anniversary. So we did celebrate over the weekend. We just had a little spa. So we had siblings take care of Emmett. And I think it was kind of the first time that we kind of let, somebody take him, kind of put him to bed and all of that stuff. I guess that has happened other times, but just longer periods of time than normal. So It was interesting, but it was fun.
Congratulations.
Yeah, right on. I find it a little bit humorous that during, I don't want to speak for you about why you guys forgot. I assume it's just because life has just been weird lately.
Yeah, I think so.
And humorously enough, I was reflecting on this the other day, that during the whole like quarantine pandemic, which is kind of ending-ish, at least for now, we did not have any anniversaries, birthdays, kids' birthdays, anything. Like all of it is like toward the end-ish of the year. I mean, my birthday's this month, our anniversary is in a couple months, and then the kids' birthdays and Brittany's birthday are in November, December. So it's like I haven't had to
worry about it.
Yeah, like I haven't had to change plans, like
gotcha.
Kids graduating these days, they didn't have a proper graduation, or people celebrating anniversaries at home or whatever. I didn't have to do any of that.
Weddings.
Weddings, yeah, absolutely. Weddings, yeah.
Yeah, I got a friend, they got married, and then they're like, we'll just do the whole reception after everything. Like, I'm just like, okay, there you go. I mean, that way you can just be together.
Times.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, we celebrated our 11 in April, so it's sort of at the beginning of the whole thing. So we just sort of stayed at it.
Yeah, I don't know what that's like. I can't claim that. So I guess if it's still going on come August, maybe I'll know. But
well, when coronavirus 2 comes back, maybe you'll experience some of it.
COVID-20.
COVID.
It'll happen, I'm sure. So hopefully not too soon though, because it's been rough on a lot of people. Me, not so much. I'm a bit of a homebody. I'm kind of a hermit, so it's not been too difficult for me.
Like, what's changed?
I know.
What do you mean?
Wait,
this is hard.
Quarantine? People are staying inside? It's like a dream come true for me.
I don't have to cancel plans? What?
It's so weird.
Yeah.
Going back to something Eden said earlier about how our kids are sort of, they're in kind of different stages, but they're sort of close-ish to age. One of the things I noticed that I've been enjoying a lot recently is when I come home, like for example today, the team I'm on, we rotate what days people go into the office in the afternoon to take care of some office work. Today was my day, and so when I got home from work today, I opened the door and the kids are right there, and they both come to give me a hug, and it's just like, oh, it just feels so good. They both awesome. Come running up. Buddy will come and run up and give me a hug, and then Swiss is not far behind. So it's really great.
Well, and there's different stages. There was a time that I think I would come home and he'd just like run to mom, and I'm like, wait, you're supposed to run to me, not to Cody.
Yeah.
And now he's already like, okay, he'll come say hi to me and miss me, but it's like, it's not run away from dad time. I just got here. It's, but yeah, different times. It's always fun.
Yeah. It's really interesting to see how they change and grow and develop. Buddy is starting to mimic some words that we're saying. I've heard Emmett say words. As far as that goes, Emmett's like miles ahead, but Buddy is starting to mimic some words, and that's awesome. Been a lot of fun.
I'd say Emmett mimics a lot of what we say is where
yeah.
He says up for everything, and that's the one we try to claim, like, what do you want? Up? Oh, okay. And then he says up for everything else. And I'm like, okay.
That's awesome. So yeah, that's been fun to experience. And Brittany's not looking forward to when I go back to work. Real talk, I kind of am. A little bit. I do my work much better when I'm in the office. So there's a lot of distractions.
It all depends on your setup, right? I mean, if you're kind of involved with what's been going on and like the kids disrupt you, then yeah, it would be hard. I have a situation where I'm secluded and I can come out when I need to or when I can, because if I'm on calls and I'm busy, I definitely can't be disrupted. So
I wanted to ask, sounds like, let's see, this year will be technically Eden's second and my second and TJ's first Father's Days. Ooh.
Yep.
Dadding it up.
First Father Day with my own kid. Had plenty of Father's Day with my sister-in-law, who we were guardianship over for 10 years.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So in a lot of cases, you're miles ahead of us. Yeah,
I'm just doing it in reverse. I did teenage years first, and then I'm going to get the beginning years.
You got some Benjamin Button stuff going
exactly.
on.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about Father's Day? Just, I don't know, in general, was it a big part of your family growing up? Like, did your dads make a big deal of it? Did that affect how you view it? And if not, what kinds of expectations, and maybe that's not the right word to use, expectations sounds really heavy, but like, what do you expect out of a Father's Day? Or do you just think it's a really arbitrary and silly celebration?
I guess I'll start with this one. So my father, and maybe I get some of this from him, I would say he was an interesting individual. He's no longer here. He's passed away, but he was never, I would say, very in touch with emotions and stuff like that. So with Father's Day, it was, we never knew what he wanted. Like, we've given him stuff, and then we would think like, oh, I don't think he appreciated that or something. But that was kind of some experience that we had in regards to that. I think for me now, Cody always struggles with this, because when it's for birthdays, for Christmas or Father's Day, kind of those celebratory moments, that I would be involved, she always asks, what do I want? And my response is always the same. I'm like, I don't want anything.
Yeah.
I'm good. Like, I don't need anything, and it's a little bit different, I would say, especially in this sense, for Father's Day to Mother's Day. I don't know. I feel like more needs to be done for mothers because of everything that they went through and go through in delivering that baby. But yeah, I think for me, my expectation, and it's like other things to celebrate, it's like kind of whatever. If she doesn't do anything, I'm not going to get offended.
Yeah.
And if she does something great, it's also not going to make maybe a big difference. So kind of weird. Maybe I'm just weird that way.
Well, I don't think so. At least not for me. I wouldn't say that my dad was necessarily in touch with his emotions, but I don't think that he was not, I guess. Mm-hmm. But neither of my parents ever, at least they didn't tell us. Maybe they did secretly, they didn't tell us, but they didn't ever expect anything like gifts. And so I didn't grow up ever, I'm talking ever, getting my parents anything for Mother's Day or Father's Day, and rarely for Christmas or their birthdays. We just weren't really like a gift-giving family.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of shaped how I feel about it. And I agree with you, Eden. I think that women and mothers deserve to be celebrated much more than fathers. Mm-hmm. Not that maybe that we don't deserve it, but I just think they go through so much more. And gosh, they're just so much better than us. Like I was telling Brittany the other day, I was like, women are way better than men.
Yeah. Well, I just think of something simple as far as, like delivering a baby. Like the fact that they have to do that to their bodies, and their bodies will change because of that forever, and that's a hard ask. It's a huge task. And then on top of it, everything that they do as a mother, not to say like one role is important than the other, but it's just to more appreciate what they do. So
are you saying if Phil continued to stay home with the kids and didn't go back to work, and Brittany worked, that he would need an appreciation for Father's Day?
I think we could never catch up because we didn't have a baby with us for 9 months.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna eat my words here. I don't want to start doing that. So
I'm just trying to throw people off here. I'm trying to get people in trouble. Yeah, I want you all on the couch.
Yes, I know. I think so. Well, yeah. What I learned real quick when I started comparing like my job to what Cody does at home, and like, I work all day and then I come home and I have to take care of Emmett. When I started doing that was a downhill slope, right? Real fast. And so with your comment, TJ, I don't want to go down the road of saying if we were to switch roles, what's more important and all of that, and appreciation. That's not what I'm trying to get at. I just think again, going along with what they did to deliver that baby was a very, very, very big thing.
Yes, and we've heard Cody's stories about what she went through in particular, which was probably, as far as comparisons go, sounded like it was among the more difficult and serious. And so, yeah, to overcome that and be as crazy good mom as she is, like, yeah, I don't think I deserve nearly as much praise as going through what Brittany did.
Sure.
Twins and a C-section, recovering from a C-section, and still having to provide and feed your kids, and there being two of them. And man, I just echo what I said earlier. Like, I just think women are better.
Yeah. I don't know, TJ, what do you think? Do you agree, disagree?
With what specifically? I need to know what I'm going to be held to.
That's true. I think do you feel like mothers should be appreciated more than fathers? And that question, as I say it, I already know that every situation is different, right?
Sure.
For sure.
And so I think in the general sense that more often I feel that mothers should be more appreciated than fathers, but that could be just a biased opinion.
I would say there's not necessarily a more or less here. It is a different type of appreciation.
Yeah.
I mean, even if we look back at the love languages, the 5 love languages, if you guys have read that amazing book, right? Everyone has a different sort of love language, a different way to show them appreciation, right? So for Mother's Day, if I'm going to clean the kitchen and make her breakfast and make sure that, things are taken care of and she doesn't have to worry about anything that day, right? That's showing her appreciation and that's showing her love, right? Now, I don't think that means that I'm showing her more appreciation than, say, not to make it too weird, but Eden, right? If you were my wife and you say you don't need anything and you actually don't need anything, and I honor that request, yeah, right? That is also showing you appreciation in its own right? Like, obviously, if I knew what your love language was and I did something in that avenue that showing you appreciation, I think a lot of the time we think of women as being better or they need more appreciation, and I'm not saying yay or nay to that. I just like to look at it from the perspective of, for me, if I requested my wife to do what I want to do for her, I would feel completely overwhelmed and like not feel worthy, right? And maybe that's my own issue, but I think a lot of men do have that sort of like, I don't want anything because deep down I don't feel like I deserve to make you do something for me, right? You do enough already.
Yeah.
And they show their appreciation in a different way, not necessarily less or more. I just think it's different. And it's been hard for me sometimes because Jess is generally a really good gift giver. I'm not a good gift receiver. I'm not. I don't do well. Like she'll give me some of the best gifts. My dog, I've wanted a dog for years and years and years. My dog, Phil, was there. They brought the dog in, and I was like, "Oh, a dog? You right?" But then like, but then like I'm thinking like, how much should this cost? Like, how are we gonna? Now we have to worry about the dog. Now we have to do. But then 3 hours later, I'm bawling, and I'm like, "This is my dog."
Yeah.
Right. And so she always knows what to give me, even if I don't know what I need. And I'm not always great with expressing and receiving that gift in a good manner. So she knows what I need, and she does what I need. And whether that's more or less, it doesn't matter, because I feel like I'm appreciated, right? I feel like I get what I need. And I think that's what it's about, right? I think that's what Mother's Day is about. And I think that's what Father's Day about.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what's less, what's more. It just matters how much love you feel on that day.
Yeah, I agree. And like you mentioned, the love languages, there are so many different ways to express that appreciation, that love, and knowing what your partner's reception love language. I don't know. I haven't read the book, but I'm familiar with the 5 languages.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing, how they receive love, I think is really, really important. One of Brittany's, I'm not going to say that her top one is, but one of her higher love languages, I think, is receiving gifts. And I got her a weighted blanket, and that was not cheap. In fact, it was probably the most expensive gift I've ever given.
I've always wanted to try one of those, so I'm going to go just kind of pick it up and see.
Yeah, just go borrow it.
It's a
no,
12 pounder.
I just want to lift it. That's all. I've heard about
it's surprisingly heavy. Like if you're just trying to like pick it up off the ground and just like hold it up, you're like, this can't be just 12 pounds. Like I'm stronger than this, but it's hard. I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah.
Anyway, she really likes it, and I want to get one for myself too, but I sleep really hot, so I'm kind of worried about that. So
yeah. Well, and like I said, I want to go back, and I knew I was going to eat my words, because I do agree with TJ. I shouldn't have done the comparison thing. I know that's what I was trying to say when I try to do that with like the roles and responsibilities of jobs and being at home as a mother and trying to switch roles. Yeah, it's always different. That's what it is. And appreciation, everyone accepts it and gives it in different ways. So we should never do the comparison game. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. I kind of tend to compare myself to Brittany in terms of what I deserve or feel like I deserve. So if she asks me, what do you want? I'm like, just scratch my back for 5 minutes. We'll be good. Like, I'm not big on like big celebrations or whatever. So anyway, Thanks for your feedback about Father's Day. I think it'll be interesting if our listeners want to chime in and about their own opinions on Father's Day and maybe tell us how we were either wrong or they disagree with our takes.
We're not wrong. We can't be wrong. You see how I worded everything? It's impossible to prove that I'm wrong.
Masterfully crafted.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
You can at us at Partum the Mess on Twitter and email podcast@partumthemess.com. You can get to us that way. Okay, so before we transition to our main topic of dad shaming, I believe Eden has a little bit of a product praise for us. And these product praises, we will try to put them in the show notes so our listeners can check out these products that have made an impact on our lives as parents.
Yeah, so I think this may or may not have been brought up in the past, but something that we use is just a company called Melaleuca. They have these natural products that are not supposed to be harmful. And one of the big things that we love and we can't go without is the lotion Renew. And it's something that we have used on Emmett since he was a baby boy. And every time we give him a bath, we always put that lotion on him. But even my own experience, that is the one thing that whenever I have any kind of like, I don't know, itchy, rash, dryness, that kind of thing, I've always used it. It's always worked wonders. And so we feel like it does the same for Emmett with anything that he gets, whether rashes on his butt or things that he gets scratched up. I feel like it helps healing and also comfort.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks to you guys, we have also tried it. I'm a little bit of a skeptic generally when it comes to all natural kind of essential oil type stuff. But I have to say, we used that lotion. Buddy had some eczema. We used it and it really helped clear it up. And whenever there's any kind of skin irritation or whatever, or dryness, we put that on and I swear it's like magic. So that stuff's really good.
There you go.
My understanding is that you need to have some kind of membership or something in order to get it. But yeah, I think if our listeners have any questions about that, they can email it to, and Brittany, I think, is the one that can provide some of that information. So
cool.
Thanks for sharing that. With that, we're going to go ahead and transition to our main topic today, which is about dad shaming. There was an article in the New York Times, June 16th, 2019. So it is fairly recent. And we'll have a link to this article in the show notes. You can check it out yourselves. And it talks a little bit about dad shaming and the concept of, I guess it's fairly well known, the concept of mom shaming, which my understanding is criticism generally to mothers from mothers about their methods for raising their children, whether it be, discipline or nutrition or whatever. I guess this is a thing, like mom shaming, as mothers offer advice to other mothers, often unsolicited. And it says in the article, but unless it's been requested, that advice is rarely welcome. And so it talks about, there was a recent poll. This whole mom shaming thing came up fairly recently, and it was kind of, I think, an eye-opener for a lot of people. In fact, let me just read an excerpt from the very beginning of the article. It says, 2 years ago, a national poll of parents showed that many mothers were very aware of being criticized for the parenting decisions, small and large, that make up daily life with children. Now the same poll has turned to fathers, and it turns out that they also frequently feel judged and found wanting. In this national sample of fathers of children up to the age of 13, 52% of fathers surveyed said that they had been criticized for their parenting. So I wanted to ask, do you guys feel like you are among that 52%? Have you been criticized either by peers or parents or grandparents or even your partner regarding the parenting of your child or children, and to what extent,
Yeah, I think it happens. Well, I come from a Latin family. Okay, so
sure,
people in my family, specifically my mom, she'll just say things and have her opinion on things, and she'll say it to me and she'll say it to Cody. And I think, I don't know, it's probably common in any situation with parents, but maybe Latin families tend to be more open about that kind of stuff. And yeah, she said things that I completely don't agree with, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that. And I'm trying to think of an example. Maybe she always thought that Emmett was cold all the time, and that I needed to put more blankets on him, and he's freezing. I'm like, no, he's not freezing. He's okay, and I pay attention to that. So just that was something in the past, and I'm sure. Well, what I found interesting in the article is that a lot of it comes from your spouse, right? That kind of shaming, and it could not even be something that you guys are aware that's happening, right? It's there was some examples given of her asking you to do something and then telling you how to do it, right?
Right.
It's like, you're asking me to do it, and then now that I'm doing it wrong, like there were some interesting examples of how that shaming comes from within the home, or even giving praise to something that shouldn't be given praise to.
Right.
Like, oh, good job. You fed him food. You fed him dinner today. Like, you're doing great. Like,
yeah. Look at you dadding.
Yeah. So there was definitely some things that were eye-opening to me that I didn't even think about. But I think it happens naturally. At least for me, I've definitely seen examples, in my own life.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is just a difference of how we would do things, right? Mm-hmm. Like, or what we're concerned about. I really, and I think you said this actually on your own episode, Eden, but you don't like it when Emmett gets messy, right? Like when he's eating. Yeah, I'm totally the same way. I can't stand it when, I shouldn't say I can't stand it, but every time Brittany wants to give the kids like yogurt or something, I'm just like, oh, it's going to get in their hair and it's going to get all over the place. And, she's much more learned than I am in this realm. And she says, well, it's good for sensations and it's good for, learning.
They're learning, yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's a little bit funny that even despite the fact that I don't like the kids to get dirty, I routinely forget to put bibs on them. I don't know why. I think I'm just so concerned with, getting them ready, getting them in the high chair, getting their food to them, because they're screaming the whole time. They're hungry, and they certainly let us know. And what's primary thing on my mind is get them their food in front of them. And I'm telling you, 95 times out of 100, I forget to put their bibs on. And I've been trying. I've been doing, I think, a little bit better. But, I think it's just some of that criticism could be just a difference of what we prioritize and the method that we might do it. And I think that all of us need to be a little bit kind of introspective and think, did the other person do it the way that I would do it? Well, if not, is that still okay? Like, did it still achieve the same result? Whether that's, I don't know, feeding them or whatever. But yeah, I've certainly been the target of some of that criticism, and I'm sure that Brittany has too. So it was a little bit eye-opening to see that mentioned in the article.
I think that there's a difference between dad shaming and putting forth an opinion. I feel like, as a whole, people believe that they are good at whatever they're doing, right? So this gets into the concept of cognitive dissonance, in which somebody believes, I'm a parent, I'm doing a good job. I believe I'm a good parent. And if somebody tells me something that I'm not doing, that seems counter to what I believe cognitively, right? So I'm a good person. I'm doing a good job. You told me to do this other thing and I'm not doing that thing. So I can either accept I'm not a good parent, or you're wrong and I'm angry at you.
Yeah.
And obviously there are other choices you can make there. But I think as a whole, most people aren't shaming parents. This is what I believe, right? I believe most people aren't shame. They aren't saying something to cause shame.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
They are simply offering an opinion, not saying, but we take that as you don't know what you're doing, so I'm going to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
But generally it's offered in Eden, I don't know, your family, but my guess is, I think he's freezing. It's not hey, you're doing it wrong and you're going to kill your child. It's hey, he looks cold to me, so I want to say something about it. It's like the difference between having, if someone leaves their dog in a car and somebody else calls the cops, right? I'm going to be mad that you called the cops on me because I thought my dog was fine. Well, but was the dog fine, right? There's this whole issue with that, right? I think it's very similar. It's not necessarily your fault, and I'm accusing you and shaming you for it. Dishonor on your family, dishonor on your cow.
Good Mulan quote.
Yeah, I'm just offering an opinion, and I think we as parents often turn that into shame. So I think we're actually responsible for a lot of the shame that we feel. Now, that being said, yeah, I hate it when people offer opinions. Right. I mean, this has happened my entire life. I got married in California at 22, and that's early in California. And people would, you're getting married? Oh man, this. Oh, you'll learn this. Oh, well, thanks. I know all that already. Sorry, it took you 10 years to figure it out. And I don't mean to brag or say how much better I am than everyone else, but it's proved generally true that all those things that people told me, I did already know. And with babies, I know a lot about babies. I have a degree in psychology, and part of that is in child psychology and development and stuff, childhood development. And so I do know a lot about children, but I also acknowledge that my wife knows a lot more practical use of children, right?
Sure.
So as long as we're humble about everything and we acknowledge that we don't know everything, I think a lot of that quote unquote dad shaming just turns into opportunity. And as we allow ourselves to learn and grow, we experience far less shame. Now, I'm not saying I'm perfect at this, like you guys, right? Like if I make a decision for my child, right? We said we're sleep training. If I make a decision that I'm going to leave my child in the crib, he may be crying, and I have made the decision that I'm waiting 15 minutes or something, right? We've already talked this out. We already have it. I'm just using arbitrary numbers here.
Sure.
And then she comes in and says, are you going to get him at the 10-minute mark? I'm going to feel upset because I chose 15 minutes and I don't need to explain myself to you because I'm a good parent, right? Like I still feel that same way, but it wasn't necessarily her who made me feel shame. It was myself because I wasn't being humble in wanting to, you weren't there when I made that decision, right? We're doing this together. This isn't just a me thing, or this isn't just a you thing. So I think too often, I don't think I have been dad shamed. I have felt upset when someone has offered their opinion. And actually only Jess. Jess is the only one who I've actually felt bothered by it. And maybe because we have talked so much about things and talked about how we're going to raise our child and what we're going to do and how to do it. And I ask her a lot, okay, how am I doing this? What are we doing this? So we know. And other people, I guess I've just sort of learned that I know enough to not feel bad when somebody that I don't know tells me how to raise my kid.
Yeah.
I had a college professor, psychology actually, who he took his kid to the store, and his child threw a tantrum because he wanted a treat at the checkout line. You know, they always put those treats at the checkout line.
Dirty tactics.
Right. He starts wailing and crying. And so my teacher just stood there, waited, and he had at least 3 different women come up and try to talk to the kid, try to offer him a cookie. And he's like, this is the exact opposite of what I'm trying to do here. Why would you offer him a cookie when he's complaining about not getting treats? That makes no sense. But the women felt like he was a dad. He didn't know what he was doing. He has a doctorate in psychology. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he was doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
But they still felt like, oh, he's a dad. He doesn't know what he's doing. I have to step in and help him. And I think they had good intentions, right? They weren't shaming him.
For sure.
But he could have felt shame from that. Anyways, it has a happy ending. After about 10 minutes, the kid gets up and apologizes for throwing a tantrum.
Ah, there you go.
Right? And then they go on their merry way. He just had to wait for 10 minutes while the kid is screaming in the middle of a store.
There's
which
a dad
sort of
win.
Yeah, which sort of sucks, but then the kid gets up and apologizes. I guess what I'm trying to say is most of the time, I don't think dad shaming is caused by other people. It's caused by ourselves not being able to interpret or acknowledge that other people may have other information that we don't have. And even if they are wrong, it doesn't necessarily mean that, like, if they're wrong, you don't have to feel shame, right? And if they're right, you can be like, hey, cool, thanks for letting me know. And why are you shameful for learning? So yeah, I think there's too much in our society. We focus too much on cognitive dissonance, and because we get upset, we want to feed that anger. Like the article actually says, like, our response is angry. I mean, that's what cognitive dissonance does. It causes us to have anger. And yeah, I just think that there's a fine line between actual shaming and an opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the parts of the article that I liked says, Dr. Hill suggested that one way to help before things go too far may be to offer a hand, such as, hey, it looks like you're having a hard time. Can I help? And I wonder how much differently that situation would have been with your professor and his kid in the store if those 3 women just had come up and said, hey, can I help? Instead of, you should do this, or
right.
Have you tried this? Right.
Or just straight up go to the kid and offer it a cookie.
Right. I think this is useful for us to use even with our partners, because it sounded like for the 3 of us, the majority of the criticism or dad shame, or I guess whatever you want to call it, has come from that relationship. And I'm guilty of it too. And there's a lot of times where I could say to Brittany, hey, it looks like you're having a hard time. Can I help? Instead of, she needs this or whatever it is.
When TJ was talking, I think what he was talking about is a skill that is required for every aspect of our lives, which is the communication aspect of, hey, these are the expectations. We should talk about this. Even in the example you used, Phil, of like, hey, I don't like that Cody just puts yogurt everywhere and makes a mess. If I don't tell her that, that's on me. If I don't communicate, like, why do you do that? What's the reason? Oh, it's because of this. Now I understand why. And, that changes the whole aspect of why you do things or how you're doing things. And so TJ said he always asked a lot of questions about everything. And so I think that's really important in this situation, especially in raising kids and being on the same page. Because if not, then yeah, you're going to run into criticism and you might not take it the right way because you haven't come to those conclusions together, right? And the same situation of like, I set that 15-minute time limit. Why are you bothering me at 10 minutes? Yeah. It's, if that's not communicated and the expectations are not there. So that's just a life skill in every aspect, of marriage and communication. One thing I thought was interesting, and I don't know if this was brought up, was the actual, even when it happens, that criticism. I'll just read off of the article because I think it's well said. Criticism, of course, can sometimes have the desired effect. And so even though, what happened to this doctor, somebody said something to him in a stroller, kind of like the example TJ gave of somebody, a random stranger, trying to do something completely contrary to the situation that they don't understand. He took that criticism, but as a matter of fact, sometimes what people say in that criticism can actually create change, and it can be change for something that's good. And so it's always a tricky balance, right? And I think it's all about how we approach these situations, how it's said, what tone, going back to how things are communicated is probably the important aspect of what we're talking about here, the shaming aspect and criticism.
Right.
Right.
And so going along with that, I thought it was interesting too, because I was actually going to bring up that part after something TJ said, but I thought it was interesting. He says, one of the things I thought very heartening was that almost half of the fathers who reported being criticized said that they either changed their behavior in response or sought out more information, and that they took this moment to educate themselves. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty interesting too. And I think, being humble is a big part of it. I have to humble myself and realize that I don't know as much as Brittany knows about parenting, about childhood development, about that it's important that they get yogurt all over their faces for the sensation, the texture experience, whatever it is. Meanwhile, I'm just like, ugh, now it's going to dry in their hair. And all I see is the surface and how it annoys me, instead of trying to let them learn and grow for themselves, which I totally recognize is super important. But it's like, for me, I just want to do the thing, get it done, and check off the list. And what I mean by that is, like, they're hungry, I'm going to feed them so that they don't get messy. Because the end result is making sure that they're fed, not making sure that they're fed and a mess. The article ends with, the fathers I come across, this is a quote from Dr. Garfield, and again, we'll have the link to this article in the show notes so that the listeners can check it out. But the quote from Dr. Garfield says, the fathers I come across are all problem solvers. They see a problem, the child's behavior, or mom's unhappy, and they want to find a way to fix it. And that's totally me, right? Like, I want to get from point A to point B with the least amount of resistance. If the child is hungry, I'm going to feed the child. If the child needs a diaper change, I'm going to change the diaper. I'm not going to, or I should say, it doesn't cross my mind to let them explore while they're naked or whatever, right? Or let them experience something in particular, because my mind is not thinking about how are these opportunities for learning and development and growth. Instead, it's the diaper's dirty, I'm going to fix that. The child's hungry, I'm going to fix that. The child needs to be dressed, I'm going to fix that. Child needs a bath, I'm going to fix that. And I think that sort of logical brain that I have kind of gets in the way of what's probably the best interest for the child, and what will cause me some more work and some more headache and frustration possibly, but in theory, set them up for better success, better learning, and all that.
Yeah, well, I think part of that, something you said in the beginning was like, I trust Brittany knows a lot more than I do. And I think, with everything that you said, like, I don't see those opportunities. The simple fact that we don't know that is a thing. Like, we don't do the research. Like, yeah. I completely agree that Cody knows a lot more than I do because she does the research. She has an app and she reads things online that talk about everything. And so I trust her because she's done it. If I were doing that, if I was being as diligent as her, then I may play some of that role. Like, hey, when we're feeding him, we should be doing this. Or when we're changing him, this is an opportunity to do this. It's a simple fact that we probably see it so logically because we don't know, right? Because they've done the due diligence. They've at least, I think in your situation and in my situation, I know for a fact that's the case. I haven't taken the time like she has to look all these things up for development. And maybe for TJ it's a little different because he does have experience, right, and has studied that, so he probably has more input.
It gets me in trouble.
Yeah. So
one of the benefits to editing these podcasts is that I hear all of it, right, and I hear all of it before it goes live. So spoiler alert to you guys, possibly, even though these episodes are currently live, but Jessica has talked about how she is a big researcher. Like, she will spend, in my opinion, crazy amounts of time looking up things and researching things. And I imagine that dynamic is probably a little bit different with Jessica and TJ than possibly me and Eden and our wives.
Yeah, I don't do as much current research because I have a degree, therefore I already know, which is what gets me in trouble, right? I mean, I don't know. And I know I don't know, but in the moment when we're discussing something, I know. So like, I can come on the podcast and I can sound like I understand how much I don't know and I'm perfect, and I'm not. I mean, it's because I'm talking to you guys. But yeah, it definitely, with sleep training, I had done research on it, and because I don't do research on every topic currently, it does get me in trouble because she does have that assumption that she's doing all the work. She's doing she does a lot of research. She's very intelligent. She's a wonderful woman, and she does her work. So when she says something and I counter it with a different argument, whether it's valid or not, it doesn't matter. The fact that she feels like she's done all the work and I haven't done any of the work, regardless of what she knows if I have or not, that's going to get me in trouble, because she's going to feel like I did all this work and you're just throwing wrenches into things. Yeah, you're not listening. And then, right, okay, hold on, let's talk. No, I actually did do some research on this. Let's talk about this. Mm-hmm. But I mean, to be fair, I swear every single time we've sat down and talked about something that I've disagreed on, she's ended up being right. Whether we went with whether we did my way first or something, and then we did her, or whether we just did her way, at 99% of the time, doesn't matter how much logic, doesn't matter how much psychology I can bring into it and quote unquote prove that mine is actually more beneficial for the child. Hers is the way that works. So
you can be honest. You don't have to say 99%.
Yeah.
You gotta win some. No. I know you're not trying to get in trouble because no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no. But yeah,
Amen, brother.
Yeah, it's rough. And I think that's hard because we feel like, or at least, I feel I did work. I put effort into this and I'm always wrong. That's not right. I need to be right sometimes, and that's not a valid argument. Like, we need to do this because I'm wrong. Like, So we shouldn't do it your way. Like that's the valid argument. So yeah, no, that dynamic may be slightly different, but it gets me in trouble, and she's generally right anyway. So I should just.
I know that a little bit. We get into that kind of argument with like anatomy and like body. I don't even know the term that I'm looking for, but we both studied health and anatomy. She was going into physical therapy. I was going into nursing, and I studied massage therapy. So similar situations. We sometimes come to a topic and like, no, I know this, and it's like, no, I know this. So yeah, always fun times when that's the case.
I think the takeaway from this, though, is just because one of you is right doesn't mean the other one is wrong, right?
Yeah.
Now, in my case, I do end up being wrong for whatever.
Me too.
I end up being wrong for my child. I was probably right for most children.
Yeah, I'm glad you're bringing that up, because it is very different depending on the child, right?
Exactly.
It could have been that situation with another child.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the important thing is that I think this article was a major point that I took away from this article was you can both be right, and you just have to decide among you which way you're going to try.
Yeah. And
it doesn't mean that the other one's wrong. It just means that we're going to try it this way, and that's fine. And that doesn't necessarily, you shouldn't feel shame for that. Not saying that I don't sometimes. I just said that I hate always being wrong. But I think a lot of guys can relate to that we want to be right. So I think a lot of guys give up. That was another thing in the article that I really enjoyed, that like guys just give up because, well, if she's going to be right, all the time, why even try? Because when you put effort into it, you now feel invested. And now you can have that anger or that cognitive dissonance when someone calls you out on something, because I'm invested in this thing. So I think, it's important to be humble, and it's important to acknowledge that somebody who's telling me on the street, they may be right for their kid, may not be right for my kid, and that's fine. And acknowledge that everyone's different, and there is no right way to raise your child. There isn't. Psychology is called a soft science for a reason, right? There is no hard evidence showing in any of psychology, this is the way it is. I mean, the brain, they can say, the brain, generally speaking, this part of the brain helps with this sort of function. And for the most part, it's fine. But then that portion can be blown out by a gun, and then the person still functions. And they're like, wait, this questions everything that we ever knew. And it's a soft science, right? So no matter how much you know, every person is going to be different. And you can make generalities, which is what I'm really good at, right? I can make generalities, but I don't necessarily know what's right for my specific child. So yeah, listening, communication, and don't allow yourself to feel shame, because you're probably doing a fine job. If you're listening to this podcast as a guy, chances are you're an amazing dad.
Especially if you got to this point, yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly, right? So I wouldn't sweat it so much. The people who are listening to this podcast, you're great parents. You may fail. We all fail.
For sure.
There's no right way. There might be a better way, but there's no right way.
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys, for all your input through the various topics we've talked about today. We're going to wrap up the episode here. And before we do, TJ has a recipe to share for us.
We have Sriracha honey chicken wings. Oh. These are absolutely delicious. They're super easy. Link will be in the description here. It's super easy. You throw some chicken wings, sriracha, butter, honey, and lime juice in a crock pot for like 5 hours. And then you take them out and I barbecue them. The recipe says to broil them, but you got to throw them on a grill.
Oh yeah.
You do some thickening with the sauce too. So it's really thick and sticky rather than watery. But it's super easy. They're absolutely delicious. I love sriracha I like hot stuff. I'm a really spicy guy. It's like habaneros. Anything flavored with habanero is amazing. I just had wings tonight. The mango habanero wings from Buffalo Wild Wings, not a sponsor.
Nice.
Yeah, that's right. Not a sponsor. Get at us, Buffalo Wild Wings.
Right. But that's what made me want to do this as a recipe, because it sort of gives you that feel of a nice, sweet, hot wing, but so much cheaper than actually buying them. They are a little spicy, so feel free to maybe use a little less sriracha if spicy's not your thing.
If you're me.
Yeah, if you're Phil or Brittany. The sriracha has a lot of great flavor, and that's why I like it. That's why I recommend this even though it's spicy, I still recommend it to people, because sriracha alone, of all of the, I don't know, would you classify sriracha as a hot sauce? It's a chili sauce is what it is.
I would.
Of all the chili sauces, I think it has some of the best flavor to it. Mm-hmm. And the heat doesn't overpower the flavor. The heat complements the flavor, where I think if many hot sauces or American hot sauces, it's just heat, and you're where's the flavor? It doesn't matter, heat. This really adds the flavor. So just use a little less if you're kind of scared of that heat. But sriracha, honey, lime, butter, you got golden chicken. It's amazing.
Sounds delicious.
Okay.
Oh, it's awesome. So good.
Well, thanks a lot, guys, for being on this Guys Takeover episode, and
yeah,
we had a good time. Hopefully
we're not giving it back.
Are enjoying.
That's it.
Yeah. Hopefully the listeners enjoyed hearing our sultry voices.
Our dulcet tones.
So join us next week for a new episode of Partum the Mess. And remember, you can find us online on our website at partumthemess.com or on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Partum the Mess. Thanks a lot for listening, and join us next week.
And Partum the Mess.
We're making memories.